Hi, I'm Jamie Mitchell, and welcome to another episode of the Big Wave Podcast. This week's guest is none other than big wave legend Aaron Gold. Aaron has the world record for the biggest wave ever paddled at Jaws. He has a two-time XXL biggest paddle wave award winner. He's a family man and just all-around good guy. Had a great time chatting with Aaron. We delve into growing up on the Big Island and also his near-death experience at Cloudbreak. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks. So you moved to Oahu at 10 years old. And did you move? Who'd you move with? And did you move? Did you come straight to the North Shore, or were you out in town? Or
Yeah, I moved back to the south side. My dad's from that side originally, and my dad grew up surfing and coming to the North Shore and adventuring, and just always they were all surfers and stuff. And so him and my uncle, they grew up in Waikiki, going down and every weekend they'd be at the beach down there with my grandparents and stuff. They lived right down around the corner, and so they would shoot down and surf all day, hang out, and then as they got a little older, they'd venture to the North Shore and do stuff. So when we came back, we moved down to that side, and we had pretty much come up because all my dad's friends were on the North Shore a lot, and so we every weekend during the winter and everything we were up here, and then summertime we'd be in town just surfing all over the place. And I moved to Manoa, and I was there and kind of bounced around there for a bit, and then kind of headed out towards. My dad is actually from sort of out Hawaii Kai, which is now really developed, but back in the day it was fish ponds and farms and things. And my uncles were like one of the first classes of the high school that's out there now. He actually was the first class, and so we kind of slowly made our way back there just because it was all familiar. My parents were separated, at the time. My mom stayed on the Big Island, so I was heading back and forth between the two, and kind of still got that rural, raw upbringing. Every break I had, I would go back over there and enjoy it and be able to go and see friends and surf and do stuff, and then kind of live in the country, and then I'd come be in the middle of the town. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. I started really getting into like when you come from a raw area and you're pretty like independent like that, just go free for all, and you come into the city and you're still that way. There's a lot to do. You can definitely find some fun around. So I was doing that and playing sports. I would walk down to the arcade thing that was down, which an arcade in Hilo was like, that was a big adventure to go on the Big Island, to go to like a Fun Factory and play video games. Was like, wow, you're big time. Oh, your parents it took you there. That was like a once in a year thing. And then I lived down the street. I could walk down, and there was like this Tilt right by University of Hawaii, this place called Tilt, and I'd go and scrape together any change I could find anywhere and go play a couple games, in the afternoon and head back home. It was just total different worlds. I remember getting on a bus when I moved over, and my dad was like, "Oh yeah, the bus, you can ride around." And I was like, "The bus? Where's the bus go? Like, you can ride wherever." I rode all the way to Pearl City on the bus just because I wanted to check it out. One day I got off at Pearl Ridge or something and walked around with no money and got back on the bus and rode back into Manoa at like, I was like 11 years old, solo mission or something. But that was what we grew up doing, I rode my bike when I was a kid on the Big Island from where we lived, probably like 8 miles down to the beach and 8 miles back. And I remember telling my dad, "I'm going to the beach." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, whatever." And he knew how far it was, so he just didn't think I'd go. I was like 5 or something at the time. And I jumped on the bike and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going," past the neighborhood dogs, like all the way, got there. I remember jumping in, swimming, talking to my dad's friends, and I rode home. I was gone all day. I got home and he's like, "Where were you all day?" And that was just kind of normal to be out and about. And I was like, "Oh, I went to the beach." And he thought I was lying. I was like, whatever. So I was like, "How?" And then he got to the beach the next day, and your friends were like, "Oh yeah, we saw your boy down here yesterday. Where were you at?" He looked at me like, "You're a nutbag. What did you do?" "Oh, you did come all the way down here," kind of scratching his head. So when you move to the city, you already have that kind of a mentality of just being independent. Is pretty fun. There's a cool change in my life as far as getting to really understand more of a busyness of life and having kind of two worlds colliding. So it was pretty interesting. And we go and surf, every day at Waikiki, and which was a whole nother thing in itself,
Yeah. Was your dad like was he like the guy that sort of taught you like how to surf and how to do all that stuff? Was that, always tagging along with him, and was like he your mentor style?
Yeah, 100%. You know, that was,
Yeah.
my dad was my best friend, as well as, like that, the one that him and my uncles were just, okay, what they did, I did, that's, you're a boy and your dad. And that's why I was, there was a no brainer when I was coming to come with him when he came back to Oahu. I was like, okay, yeah, wherever you're going, I'm going. And, I loved it. My dad was a fisherman, surfer, diver, just did all the same, pretty much the same things as I do. And I picked up a lot of those traits, and you find enjoyment in all of them. You don't even, being in the ocean and being around it was what it's about. And a waterman, really, and I
Yeah.
love that lifestyle. So.
Did he have that same, like, because I'm eventually we're going to get to, I'd love to talk to you about mindset and all that sort of stuff, but because you're really strong-minded and strong-willed, like, was your dad like that as well? Do you feel like that's where you got your sort of like mentality and mindset with approaching like everything you approach this day, like through him, or is it just something that you just got yourself?
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely that. I mean, you build. There's so much of it that's tied to that. What you're exposed to and your influences, like my dad, and then the opportunities that present themselves as well. As a young kid, it was like wherever they went to surf, I was going, and you grew up with that raw mentality that I was talking about. And then we'd show up and the waves are really big, and it was like, okay, well, I don't really want to paddle out there, but he's all, I'll pull you out, tows me out there on the leash and to get out, and it was big, and you just get used to getting pounded and comfortable. So there's, the environments that you get to be in, and then those kind of things dictate those things a lot. And then you kind of grow from there too, so the mentality of that, of being strong-minded and doing it, comes from being put in those situations and then becoming comfortable in them. I mean, I remember an experience like that where it was, a big south swell and going out to Diamond Head and him towing me out, and I just got, or I caught a small wave and then got just handed to me on like a 6 foot Hawaiian swell, when I was super young. It was like
Yeah.
9 years old, and I got stuck on the inside. I couldn't even paddle back out. I just got pounded, and I didn't even know what to do, a new spot and all kind of stuff. But that you went through that experience, and I got in. I was fine, obviously. I was comfortable in the water, and I got back. I was all frazzled just from not being able to do it, get back out and stuff. But you went, oh, okay, I was fine. I handled that, no worries. And you build on those experiences, and then, you move forward and you progress, and you continue to build on the platform that you're given from beforehand, and I think that's how it works when you have children. They build on the platform that, and the experiences that you pass on, and the knowledge that you pass on. And so they're naturally going to be progressively ahead of where we were when we started.
Yeah, I feel like it's a huge thing because I was talking to Mark Healy. I had him on the podcast, and same thing. His dad was like, just chuck him off jump rock, and hey, you coming along with me doing this and that, and I think if you don't get scared to the point where it's like the complete opposite, because there's that fine line, right, of like, okay, you can handle, and you like get the like, oh, I want to do that again, or it's like, I don't want to do that ever again, or you don't do it for a long time. Like I feel like it connect. A lot of people that are in our group have that, like with their dads. If you talk to them about their dads, they're like, yeah, my dad was, sort of crazy, just tagged me along and pushed me in this and this and that, and then all of a sudden, you're in it, and you've got that mentality of like, okay, I can do this, and I'm going to push myself, and then the level just keeps going and going, so that's interesting to hear, because it's I'm interested in that, so. But did you play any other sports like through high school and stuff? Was it just at the beach? Were you like into football, anything, like any of the like sort of the normal sports in America, or?
Yeah. So I basically, when I got over to here, which is to Oahu, which is a cool thing too, because Big Island, it's like sports is, there is, group sports and things like that. It's a lot spread out. It's not like here. And over here, you got all kind of leagues that you can play. You can play baseball, soccer, football. They're there on the Big Island. It's just a lot smaller of a thing. There's a lot more teams and a lot more push behind it, and a lot more support. Over there on the Big Island, it's real spread out. So it's a lot of effort to like get to those things and do it. So I was right in Manoa. I ended up starting to play football. I really wanted to play football. I was young, the age for the team that had to be there. And there's a whole year that I had to wait. And there was actually tryouts for the team because the team was pretty good. So the first year I ended up not being able to play because I was too young. And I was so bummed. So all year I just sat there like frothing over playing. And I was like, this next year I'm going to play. I want to play football. I like that kind of physical activity and hitting like that, pads, and also getting hit and just being physical. And so I played football and then ended up playing for a few years. I wanted to play in college, and then I was actually going to try and walk on, and I ended up deciding to go more towards the surfing route. And it was too much commitment for me actually to go and do training in the summer and play football during high school. And summer I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to enjoy my summertime. I don't want to be going to practice and stuff. So I did that. I paddled canoe actually for quite a while, going to regattas and steering and doing those kind of things. And then I was doing those two, and I kind of ended up burning out on all those things because it was pretty busy. I was playing basketball too at one point, and all three of those things just were like, I got back to the roots of, when you go to the beach and you get done and you're done. It was nice to be able to let all that other team stuff go and the commitments that come with it. And so I started doing more towards that, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing football and some great experiences. And it's one of the things that if you wish when you give up other sports when you're young like that and you don't realize that you're going to give them up. I always thought I was going to play again. And you don't really remember your last game. You never really got to savor it. It was kind of bitter. I always wish it'd be fun to like get a bunch of pads and go with the boys and play a full real football game. But nowadays we'd get hurt. We're old. We'd be falling apart. Me and I'd be limping around.
Yeah, it's something about there's something about team sports too, because I love playing football, and I played football, rugby, and rugby league, soccer, all that stuff. And there was something about lacing up the boots and running out with your buddies and having that unity and just not wanting to let anyone down. That's pretty cool. And because surfing can be such an individual sport, right? And big wave surfing not so much. You sort of can travel in teams and with all the safety and stuff. It's a lot of teamwork as well. But generally speaking, surfing is such an individual sport. But so I guess finishing high school then, so no college. What was the next step? When did Aaron Gold really start to think about surfing, like maybe as a future, or just, I'm more interested in like, when was it like you started to come out to the North Shore and then really start to like think, wow, I enjoy the big waves? Like, was there a certain moment when you're like, this is what I want to do? Like, I just love this so much and I'm just going to push myself as hard as I can. Was there a moment like that, or did it just sort of just gradually happen over time?
For me, it kind of gradually happened over time. There's experiences definitely where I can look back and go, okay, that was like a climbing point, an experience that stepped it a little bit more in the direction that I wanted to go. But I never really put it as it being a career or anything like that of a possibility. When I was a kid, I surfed contests and I was actually winning them. And then when I moved, when I was real young on the Big Island and stuff, and then so I got a little bug of winning things, and then you're like, okay, that's cool. But I moved over to the Oahu, and it was a whole different scene of surfing kids and this whole other thing. And it was just intimidating as far as, not knowing kids. At home, I knew the kids, and it was just fun to go surf and enjoy the contest. And then it was like, okay, well, who's all these people, and it kind of turned me off to it. And then I started playing other group sports too, just in that same time. So it wasn't really a priority. I didn't really have this, I was honestly like a little scared probably to go and surf against the other kids just because it was just intimidating. And then, but as I always loved surfing bigger waves and stuff. And that was my dad and them kind of pushed it. And, those young days, I couldn't take a surfboard on the bus. So I'd end up riding the bus to the beach with a bodyboard at Sandy Beach and just getting flogged on the shore break and building up in that. And then you get pretty comfortable and heavy getting smashed into, sand all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a good training ground of how to handle and swim against currents and be comfortable with just getting hammered all the time. And then, at about between my 7th and 8th grade year or 6th and 7th grade in school, I was probably about 11 or 12. and my dad, we came out to the North Shore on one day, and it was like a smaller day, but like Pinballs day at Waimea. And I remember we had a couple, like I had a 7.0, and that was a gun for me. I was like, I'm riding a gun. I was like, oh, this thing's massive. Like, oh, Dad, I got a gun. I was riding like 5.6s or something, and a 6.4 was probably like my standard at one point too. There, I was like, yeah, 6.4. Then 7.0, I was like, I got a gun, man. And I caught my first wave. Save the long story, but I ended up getting completely flogged on a foamy underneath ugly 10-foot wave that I shouldn't have really. I was dodging sets the whole time, but I had this relationship with my dad and my uncles that we'd come out to surf on the North Shore, and if it was too big, it'd be like, oh, you can wait, and maybe we'll take you to the beach Haleiwa later if you lucky. If you want to, you just got to come out. So I try and paddle out sometimes and get smoked and end up on the beach and just swim in and wait for them to come in. But I'd talk trash to them because I wanted them to take me somewhere that I could actually surf most of the time. So I just be all like trash talking like big time to them. And that was the relationship I had with them. It was like really a friendship. But I'd be like, yeah, I'll go, whatever, come on, I'm not scared and all this stuff. And I was probably terrified, but he took me out to Waimea, and so the whole time before I was full of trash talking, like, yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm not scared. And then I go out there, and you're like, oh, this is scary. And then I just totally dodged all the sets, full bomb dodger. Like every time the set would come, scratch to the channel, and then I'd work my way back in there and be like, I'm gonna get one. And the session was almost over, and they're like, yeah, we're going. And I would have never been able to live it up if I didn't try and catch a wave. They would have just hassled me so hard. So I took off on this ugliest one and got just completely flogged. And I remember I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going right now. I'm going to die. I was getting held down super long. I got like just airdrop pitched and just foamy, drug underwater forever. And I came up, and when I came up, I was like, okay, that was a turning point. That was something like, okay, I can do that, and I'm not going to die, and I'm okay. I've handled it. It was just new and foreign, and so I learned a lot from that experience, and really that kind of set. And I was like, there wasn't other kids doing that too hardly at that time. There's a weird gap in between surfing in the 80s and that early 90s, and then it picked up into the Kelly Slater era, and Brock and those guys were a little older, and there was a weird gap, but it led me to want to go more. And I remember just the feeling of being in the water at the bay was just something that was incredible. Not even that experience in that alone, just the power of the energy of the ocean moving that I'd never experienced took it to another level of wanting to do more. And then from there, it was like, okay, slowly progressing, and then a couple other experiences along those lines, at stages. One when I was like 17 at sunset, and then a morning of an eddy. I had another one that was the one that Noah Johnson won, which was a crazy huge one in the morning. It was solid 25-foot Hawaiian in the morning, which again, it was heavy and big and gnarly, and I just got flogged in the morning and lost Tony Moniz's board in the rocks and swam in and full cocky too. I was just like, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna sit deeper than all you guys. I'm gonna pack it. I don't care. That was my mentality at that point in my mind, which was a really bad mentality. And I'm super lucky I didn't die and drown right there and whatnot. But it was a good learning experience. And from there, I really was just like, hey, I love this, and I want more of it, and it built from there.
Yeah, but you did have that mentality for a while, right? I mean, that I wouldn't say a chip on your shoulder, but you were like, even, for me, before I really got to know you, like, you were that underground guy. You know what I mean? Like as much as, I mean, obviously not now, but those years leading up, like even trying to when everyone's trying to get into the eddy and stuff, like I there was all these guys that'd be like, just watch this guy, man. This guy, Aaron, like he'll turn and go on anything. You know what I mean? Like you had that sort of reputation that like it didn't matter. Like you would just go, and I think that's sort of like, it's sort of like nearly like an attitude you've nearly gotta have to, I don't know if it's proving it to everyone else or to yourself, but like, it's a tough game to like, to move yourself into in the way you want to go. You know, like for example, like just trying to get into the eddy. I mean, like we've surfed the first eddy both of us surfed was together, but I mean, obviously you probably should have been in a bunch before that, but like, you know, it takes a long time to like get that recognition, and sometimes it's just like, well, I'm going to go out and just sit deeper than all these guys and take off and prove a point. You know what I mean? Like, and you, I mean, there's some, you know, I remember seeing that airdrop free fall photo at Waimea years ago as well. And I mean, you definitely put your time in, but what was it like? You know, what was it like being that guy? You know, was it frustrating at times? Like, because I know, like, you know, you're not a chest beater or anything, you know what I mean? And I know, you know, there's been some incredible out of reef sessions that, you know, no one even knows about and all that stuff. But, you know, what was it like, you know, like, not so much, you know, wanting to be say a pro big wave surfer or anything, but like the eddy is the one, right? The eddy is the contest you want to be in. It's the one that everyone wants to, you know, you get voted in. It's like your peers get you in there, like, and some of your friends like Cole and stuff that had gotten in, you know what I mean? It must have been a little bit frustrating for you, but especially knowing that, like, you know, you'll turn and go on anything that comes your way.
Yeah, you know, it was really a growing experience through those years because you know at that point I moved back from the Big Island. I really wanted to do that. I was like, okay, I want to be in the eddy and I want to do this. It wasn't so much to be a pro surfer and get paid or anything like that. I was like, I was around Tony and Moniz and his family, right? I was right there, lived by them, so I was the eddies when I started becoming hanging around them. I was like, I would go to the contest with them, which I had already come to them before, but it was like I'd be there and supporting him and like the pit crew, and you be a part of the ceremonies. And that's, I was like, this is what I want to be. That I want to be at that level. Like I believe I'm at that level and have the capability of doing that. So, you know, that was my goal, was to be, prove that I, you know, that was, you know, like you said, either prove it to yourself or prove it to other people. It was probably more, it's a combination of whatever reason you're doing it, but there was part of that, and definitely in the beginning. And then you kind of learn, and it was hard because I'd see these other guys and they'd, you know, I was putting in the time and I was out there every swell, and I'd be, you know, like you said, I was like, I'm going to sit deeper and try and ride this wave different than anybody's ever rode it. And I'd take off, and I broke a lot of boards, got a lot of poundings, a lot of things. It takes a lot of energy and effort to do those things. And when you don't get into the event, and just because people didn't know who I was really, and, you know, I was like that underground guy. And so for it to get back to the corporate side and the politics side of different things that go on is really difficult. And there's a lot of guys that are deserving too. And, you know, they'd be like, oh, you deserve to be in, and all you got to do is go talk to so-and-so. And I'm like, I wasn't going to do it that way. I knew that, you know, Tony had always told me, just be humble, do what you're doing, you're going to get in. And so
Yeah.
I stuck to that. And it was hard though, man. I'd be looking at guys and going, man, they're not doing what I'm doing, but they're in and they're doing this and they're getting paid to go and do stuff. And so it was a good humbling experience for me, and kind of take that chip off of my shoulder that I was like, I'm gnarly. I'm gnarlier than all you guys. It kind of just put it in perspective. Like, hey, it doesn't matter how gnarly you really are. It, you know, character goes a long ways too, and how you carry yourself and how you carry yourself to others around you. And so I grew a lot through that season, and to watch things that it was really hard actually in 2010 when the event went, that Greg won and Cole got to surf in. And, you know, being that I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, it ain't going to happen. I'm never going to get in there, and that's fine. And I kind of had to come to terms with just, am I just doing this on my own because do I still love it? Do I want to be doing this? And I was just kind of over a lot of the work and the things. And I was working in between that all too. I didn't have the support to go and surf full time and just be a surfer full time. You know, a lot of us big wave surfers, people don't realize that we love it. And if you're not getting the support, you want to be there and be doing it. You have to take off work to go and do it, or you have to try and do it in between working. You can't just travel and run all over the place. And so we're blue collar guys, and you make the efforts when you can, and you have to prioritize things, which is hard to sit there and go, oh, okay, there's a giant swell and I want to be there and I got to work today because I got to pay my rent. Otherwise I'm not going to have a place to live and I'm going to sleep on the streets and those kind of things. So, you know, as it moving forward into those things, you really value those days that you do get. And I was kind of burnt on working and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, it ain't going to happen. I'm going to move to the Big Island. I wasn't going to go and push it to people. And I moved to the Big Island and thinking, oh, I can fly back over and still surf big waves and this. And I was back home for like about a year, and that event went, and I drove all over the Big Island looking for it. I'm like, there's got to be something big and killer and going. And there's great waves, and there was fun. I ended up surfing some 5-foot slab, but I literally drove everywhere. And when I missed it and watched it and stuff, and there was something that wasn't complete in me. There was something that was missing, and I felt like I was supposed to come back to Oahu and just be able to surf, big waves still. I wasn't done with big wave surfing, and I couldn't do it from over there the way I wanted to. So that was what kind of the doors opened for us to come back, and got back over here. And then, it was crazy. Little things start to happen when you let go of your dreams, the way that you hold on to it. That's usually, you kind of get to the point where you lose those chips on your shoulder, and you just go, all right, I just love it because I love it, and there's no strings attached. And that's usually when things start to happen the way you want it, the way that it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's funny because you're a perfect example, I think, of like, I mean, if you really look at like, the big wave surfing community, like there's only a very few people that don't work at all and like are able to do that. And even the guys that do have, help from sponsors and stuff, it's not enough to like, like have a house and pay a mortgage and raise a family. Like everyone's doing other stuff, like everyone's got jobs, everyone's hustling, everyone's doing whatever they can to make ends meet. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that, God, I remember like the time, like we're always looking at swells, and it's like, okay, like, can I get the miles, or you're on standby when we're trying to go to Portugal that time. And we got all the way to Newark, and you couldn't get on the flight to come to Nazare. Yeah. And it's just like, like that stuff happens, and like all of a sudden you had to like, we're going to surf and you're going, I think you might end up going to the snow because you couldn't get that flight, and you're going to miss the swell. So I think that's for people listening, like 99.9% of these guys and girls that do this is because they love it, and they self-fund it. And, luckily for you, like you did get some traction, like the contest came along with the WSL, you got into the Jaws contest. You're a two-time, I think you may be the only two-time double XL biggest paddle wave winner. You from the El Nino year that you broke the world record for the biggest wave ever surfed. And then I think did you back it up the next year? Was it back-to-back, or was it a gap and then you won it again?
Yeah, there was a 1-year gap in between that. It's funny. You look at the way things work for us guys that work all the time. It's like, okay, I go hard 1 year because that El Nino year came perfect. I had been doing a bunch of work, and I was like, hey, this year I'm just going to cruise and put effort into surfing and just enjoy getting to surf. And it turned into that crazy year of things. And then there was another year right after that. So I ran around all year, El Nino year. And then it was like, okay, the next year was pretty slow waves wise, but I also didn't really push to go and surf that much. And then the next year I got it again. And so you kind of see it come in waves of how the effort that you're actually putting into this, being able to go and surf. And unfortunately, you got to prioritize stuff. And I had family and have things, and that's how I look at it. I go, okay, is it, am I able to go and do this? Is everything good at my family first and everything before I put surfing? And so you see these waves. But yeah, it was a year with a gap in between, and then 2 years. So.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? It's like whether it's family, whether it's injuries, like that. Mm-hmm. Like you had, like this year you were taken out with you fell off. I think were you cutting a mango tree on your property, and you fell off the ladder and landed on your heel and completely shattered your heel. So you didn't, but you missed a pretty good year. Yeah.
Don't tell everybody I fell off of the roof off of it. That's not supposed to happen. Yeah. You don't fall off as a surfer. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you better. But in hindsight, you missed a pretty a good year. Like if you're looking at, I mean, there was really good waves on the North Shore. Don't get me wrong, but as in like big swells, Mavericks didn't really break. We had the contest day at Jaws. That was good, but all in all, it was like sometimes, those things happen for a reason, like you think it's, the worst thing ever. Then you get through it a little bit, and then you're like, it's not so bad. It hasn't been the swell. And then, but how is your actually, speaking of your injury, how's it all going? How's it all recovered? I know you're back working hard at the house, but have you been back surfing? How's it all going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's been a challenging year in that sense. It's just a really horrible injury, and definitely for surfing and all the way that it is. And just, your heel, you don't realize it, but it does all your balance and takes all your weight from your body all the time. And so it was completely shattered in pins and stuff. So it's been like, I've been getting back and I can surf and go. It's just going to be a long process. It's these kind of injuries where you really do something that bad. From what I gather, it's really a 2-year kind of a thing before you don't notice it anymore. And it takes a lot of energy and effort to get it back there and rehab and those sort of things. But it's doing good. I mean, I'm on it all day when building what I've been building, because that's my income comes in from those kind of areas and my rental and things that I'm working on. But it's, at the most part, I'm super stoked with where it's at, and I'm looking forward to this next year. The struggles that kind of came because of, it was basically, 6 months of not being able to walk anywhere on, on crutches and doing things and not be able to do anything. And then, to be able to have that, to be able to walk the last, 3 months or so is a gift. And you really take those things, you don't take the little things for granted. You really appreciate every little bit. To not walk with crutches is killer. And to jump in the water and surf with my kids or go ride waves. Right at the end of this last winter, there's a few tail end swells that I was able to just go and see how it would go. And I really wanted to, like, okay, am I going to be able to take off and make a pretty decent drop or what? And, I surfed a couple like solid days, double overhead and riding fine. I can't really do your crazy turns that you would normally do high performance wise or anything, but, to ride the wave was amazing. And I'm definitely looking forward to this next year, getting this thing completely strong. I got the baby coming next month, so I'm going to just be on cruise mode after that. And once there, and I'll just be rehabbing it and looking forward to another year and getting some actual waves. It's pretty difficult, honestly. For you, you're like, it wasn't that great of a year. And you're looking, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that great of a year. It really wasn't. It could have been pumping the whole year and I would have just been devastated. But it's never easy as a big wave surfer to watch, like, to sit there. I had to watch the Jaws contest and watch all you guys.
Yeah.
I was stoked for you guys to get amazing waves, but those kind of conditions and that kind of big, heavy surf that you guys had, I'm like, just sitting there, just drooling, honestly. Just like, I couldn't even watch it at one point. I was like, I gotta turn this thing off. I'm locked in here too long, and just like making me, I'm gonna have to go jump off the roof into the pool or something just to like smack myself in the face with water, get some water in my brain or something. But it was, it's those things are humbling experiences, and that's what I really take home about it. And when you have injuries like this, it's part of what we do. That was an unfortunate one for me that wasn't surfing related, but as your sternum, you cracked your sternum the other year before, your shoulder injuries and all the things that we deal with. It's a physical sport. What we do is really physical, and people don't understand that much. And even with like Billy and his injury now, it's like when you're pushing the level to what it is, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And these are the kind of things that humble us and bring us back to reality, that we're not invincible and that we're not these superheroes. We're just people and normal, and to be putting in the time, outside, putting in your training, putting in your safety training and just your mental and physical training is huge. So it's a full reset for me, and I'm really looking forward to this next year and getting back in the water and being able to be out there with the boys and taking some beatings.
Yeah. I'd like to just take a step back to your wave at Jaws that day. That's the Aaron Gold swell, because I feel like it's a really interesting story about different perspectives and the different process that people have going in the swells. Like we obviously all knew that swell was going to be what it was. It was pretty easy to see, and I remember just. It was an incoming swell. It was getting bigger and bigger all day. It was no rush to get out there. We all knew it was going to be gigantic by mid-afternoon. Do you go out early and warm up, get some? For me, I was on a boat. I went out, but I was watching it. I didn't surf so much early. I sort of waited till midday. I know that you had a specific plan, like and your plan just played out perfectly for what you wanted to do. And I'd love for you to just, like, for anyone listening or any of these kids coming up, like, just, I'd love to to hear you explain, like, what your plan was from, like, sort of a few days out seeing that swell to actually catching that wave, because I've heard the story many times, but I think it'd be interesting for the listeners to understand, like, what your headspace and how you approach that day.
Yeah. There's a lot of pre-plan and stuff that went into that, like not even the week of or whatnot, but just
It's a
before that
lifetime.
there was
It's a lifetime of
yeah,
preparation for that wave.
right. And even like there was swells that we went over. There was another that year had so many swells. We were over there right before that, like every week. I think I had a wave the week on the 10th or something that to that point I felt like was probably the biggest wave that would have been XXL quality, a big one. And we had been over there 2 other swells right before that, so it was really active. But previous to that, there was a couple of swells that we watched the swells come in and get ready to go over to Maui, and we're like, hey, we're gonna go. Is things gonna line up? Is it worth going? And it's pretty much an adventure to go there. It's not easy, so you really don't want to waste your energy and your money and things to go if it's not going to be worth it. And so we had got there on a couple swells, and a couple years before, I think I had gotten an XXL entry for a ride of the year in it on a big one, and Mark ended up winning, I think, the biggest paddle with his backside one that year, which I went on a crazy adventure for that swell that he got it on. And then the next one, we're there, and we got there, and I was like slow dragging to get over there, and I was thinking, I don't know if that swell was going to be big, and it got huge really fast. And we sat there, and then the wind came, and there was this window, and we were both looking at each other going, man, if we were on that window, it would have happened. It would have been the right window and the right timing to be out there and catch your wave and make it happen. It was big, the consistency. And so the next morning we surfed, and then you fast forward to this next swell. So, you take these things into account, like how long do you have in the water? How much time? Is it going to blow out? Is it going to be too big? And so I kind of was ready for it. And this swell coming, looking at it and going, all right, it's going to be big. It's going to be clean. That's awesome. Let's see how big. And I just look at buoys and readings and things, and I calculated to be right around that time that I caught the wave. And I was sitting there in the morning, and just amazingly beautiful, but small and slowly picking up. And I didn't want to waste energy and miss the good part and not be there or break equipment. And, that happens all the time when you go to Jaws. Like most of the times you go and you come back with no boards or lost them in the rocks or.
Well, especially on that type of a swell, right? Because it's like the interval's so big and it's incoming swell, so the chances of getting picked off is like, it's inevitable. You know what I mean? It's going from, it seemed like it was getting 5 feet bigger every hour. Like it was 15 feet, then it was 20 feet, then it was 25 feet, and then I don't even want to say 30 feet, but you're sitting there going, I mean, you're seeing guys take off on waves inside you, and you're like, oh, that's a small one. And then you see photos of that wave, and you're like, oh my God, that was giant. And you're like, where were we sitting? You know what I mean? It's like the perspective is crazy. That swell came up so fast and was drawing so hard from that big interval that it was mental. And I mean, I saw your wave from outside looking in, and you're just like, oh, that's a big one. And I had no idea, and then you see it and you're like, that day was like, still to this day, like one of the craziest days in the water I've ever had.
Yeah. And that's what the crazy thing is, like those conditions to come together like that. And, we're sitting up there on the cliff, and I was talking, me and Tyler Leron and his mom and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, when I start seeing a big one, that's the time to, like, when you see a big one. Yeah. Right now I was watching Kai all day. Kai was out there, with his crazy stamina that he's got. He can do that crazy all day deal, but he was catching insiders on his stand up that were like 20-foot insiders that any given day guys would have been like all over that. And he was just kick out of one, paddle back to the end, take another one, paddle back. And I was watching, well, that looks super fun. I should get out there. And I was just going, no, you know what? When it's on, you break equipment and you do it and you put yourself out of the situation, and you're not able to be there when it's happening is the worst thing. To be sitting there on the cliff with no equipment or scrambling to borrow somebody else's or do stuff is just not the way you want to do it. You want to have everything in order, and you want to time it and be planning it. So that's what I did. And I sat there, and when I looked at the numbers, I saw a big one. Finally, I was like, that was a bigger one. All right, it's on. Let's get out there. And got out there, and that was I sat where I wanted to sit. I had been every big swell that we've been there and the ones before. When those big ones come in, a lot of times we're all getting cleaned up, or scratching for the channel on the horizon, and you're not able to make a go at it just because it's so much bigger than what we normally see. And so when I was sitting there, I had that game plan. I was like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to stretch, do my normal routines that I do, get out there, and I'm going to sit wide. I'm going to sit a little wider and out and see if the big one comes that we normally have to run away from. Maybe I'll have a shot at it. And that wave, when it came, I wasn't really thinking of it as that big. It was moving fast, and I was just like, well, if I want to catch this one, I need to be head down. And so as it moved through, it was where I was at. And I turned and was head down, and it hit the reef and sucked up, and I was able to get it where I was sitting. And that was kind of the only the way it moved there was, it was meant to be, and I didn't even think it was a giant wave. I was just like, I can get this one and I want to get it. So I was committed. But you get to the end of the ride, and that's when you kind of realize the differences in the things. And, those game plans that you have when you go out, you need to be prepared. You need to know to the spot that you're going, be prepared ahead of time, be there early, be ready, mentally prepared. Like, I've been mentally preparing for that wave for years, and it's still, in all honesty, isn't the one I over prepared for. The one there's another one that I'm looking for in my brain, the way that it was going to happen. That didn't happen the way that I wanted it to happen. That one happened the way that it was supposed to happen. But it's pretty crazy, because there was every wave that anybody got that day, and there was opportunities for you to ride the wave of your life. Every single person had opportunities to ride those waves, if you really wanted it. And we don't get those days that often. Those are day of days. And, when it comes to those days, you're only as good as what you've been preparing in your mind and preparing with your training for. So, it's pretty incredible. And we may never see another day like that. And with that kind of wind and conditions, who knows? But I believe, if you're prepared and you do it, you follow your routines and your experience, you can get those kind of waves,
Yeah, because it felt like you just had that. You were like, from what I gather, I might be wrong, but it seemed like your focus was go over, sit and wait for the one wave, and get the biggest wave of your life. Like, and that's exactly what you did. You literally paddled out, and I don't think it was that long, right? You literally paddled out, and you were in the water for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, and then that thing came to you.
Yeah, it was about 20 minutes. I went out and I do these breathing exercises in the beginning, and I'll go and swim and test my, expand my lungs and things. And I was there 20 minutes, and that, like I said, it came, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go. I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. And I just was, if I want this, I can go. And I just was, you got to commit out there. If you're not, jaws move so fast. If you're not committing to it, you ain't going to get it. And so I got that. And then I didn't honestly know what it was. I got, I took my beating and came in. They came to pick me up, and I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just, took the next one. I didn't want to take away from somebody else if they were getting smashed on the next one and needed the rescue. I was fine. So I was paddling back out, and some guys paddling by, and I was like, oh, how's it going? Just saying hi, and they had no reaction. So I didn't think anything. And then it wasn't until I got out by the boats, because I got flushed all the way to the inside, that guys were like clapping and cheering. And then I still didn't, well, okay, cool. Like, whatever, must have been something big or special. I didn't even think big. I just thought it felt weird on the ride. I was like, this is a gnarly, longest drop weird feeling I've ever had on one. But you don't equate the two in the moment. You're all in the moment. So it wasn't until Shane paddles over, and he's just shaking his head. He goes, straight off of the rocks into the history books. And I was like, looked at him and I went, what? Huh? And he's all like, yeah. That thing was, you see the picture of it? It's pretty much cartoonish. It looks ridiculous. And I was like, no way. What? He's like, yeah, that was, and then actually then I paddled back, and other friend shaking his head, Jeff Raleigh, is like, you can go in, And I was like, what? Okay. No, you can go in. And I'm like, what? Like, I want to catch more waves. And he's all like, I've never seen a wave that big in my life. And I still was like, oh, you haven't seen one in your life? Okay, well, great, whatever. I didn't equate it. And then when Shane told me, then it kind of like, wow, you have somebody that I look up to like that, Shane, for the last all growing up, and he's telling you it looks fake and crazy wave, and you're kind of sets in that wow, okay, that was something special. And then everything equates together, and you kind of realize that. But very next wave, you know, I end up going and getting another one and trying to be there. And you're over there, Jamie, you're waving at me, come over here. And I'm like, oh, I got a good one. I'm going to stay where I'm at. Everybody, I got that one over here. The lack of information relay. I should have been like, Jamie, come over here, maybe.
Exactly.
But everybody's got their game plan.
Yeah.
And I took off on another one. It was kind of ugly, and it clamped and smashed me and broke my board, bounced me on the bottom, and pretty much I couldn't really surf after that, even if I wanted to, probably because I was so bruised up and everything. I didn't need to, but that's the kind of things that, you know, that's the full perspective of it. You can go out and catch the wave of your life, and your very next wave, you could be humbled to the point where your equipment's broken and your body's broken and you have to go in. So it just, you know, brings you off of that pedestal. And it was a pretty rad experience to go full circle. And I, you know, 100% know that was a total God thing. It, you know, there's certain waves in your life that are for you, and you being anybody who's a big wave surfer knows that one was for me. And it was in that same, I've got a few of them and in my hand that you can count on your hands. And it was a special day and a special wave. And it was to be able to share that with my friends was pretty rad. Actually being there, one of my favorite parts of that whole day wasn't the wave that I rode. I think my favorite part of that day was actually sitting there and watching every wave that somebody paddled into when it gets to that level, the camaraderie between everybody. There was no hassling for waves. It was all, okay, if you want it, everybody was on support. Your head down going.
Yeah. It was more like, hey, you can. It's more like, hey, I don't want this one. You go. It was like, you can have this one. Go. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, you'd see everybody looking at each other like, okay, if somebody made the commitment to paddle, they're like, yeah, go. It wasn't like, you're almost like, oh, you're going to go, so I don't have to. All right, cool. Like, if somebody turned and went, you're like, oh, cool, I'm going out the back. But it was pretty incredible. Like, I've only experienced that once or twice in my life where it's that's kind of a day that's next level on everything, and everybody just goes, okay, this is beyond us, and we're here, and you're supporting each other. Like, you're watching, you know, every wave I watched my friends get, you're just like, yeah, you're just so stoked and cheering them into every wave and, you know, encouraging them and things. Whereas a lot of times on the medium, smaller days, everybody's still battling for a big wave. Everybody wants to get the big wave or wants to get the best barrel, the best ride. And it's special when you take yourself out of that box, you know, and that's what I really took home from that day, and one that we'll hopefully get to have again in our life. I think those things come across one or two times in your lifetime, those type of swells, and those, just that experience, not necessarily the swell itself, but that experience. So it's pretty rad.
Yeah, I think the moment it really hit home because I don't know if you remember, but that night we jumped on a plane and went to Mexico. And then you remember we stopped at Cassie's dad's house on the way, and we had we met Yanni and Uncle. We got the car, me, you, and Nathan Fletcher. We drove into, because the Todos contest was going to be 2 days later, because that swell was, everyone's like, how this swell is going to be giant for Todos, you know, and for whatever reason it was just the missed Todos and the swell was tiny. But I think on the way to the airport and sitting at the airport with you, and like, you know, the whole social media thing with Instagram, like you just start seeing photos you know, popping up, more photos, and you're just like, oh my God, like the thing is like legit, you know. It's so stoked, you know, like to see a friend get a wave of like, and not even like, forget about the height and whatever it is, like, but a wave that they've wanted, whatever that may be. Everyone's different. To see someone get a wave that they've been looking for and to get that, I think is just, it's awesome, because like you said, that may be the one for the rest of your life, you know. Hopefully it's not, hopefully there's other opportunities, but you know, who knows if you're going to fall off a ladder again when that opportunity comes, or who knows if, well, you know, who knows, man, we just don't know, you know, like, so, but I want to get back to, I think talking about how you can go from hero to zero real quick, talking about your Cloudbreak experience. That was, I mean, obviously, you know, you come close to drowning over there, but I'd like to hear your take on that whole morning. You know, I've heard the story about, hey, you got out there early, it looked pretty small, you just decided to go, you know, board shorts, not worry about the vest and stuff, and then you know, having what happened, you know, like it's a wake up call, right? Exactly the same, right? You go from biggest wave of your life, biggest wave in the world, double XL award, and you go to Cloudbreak, and then that happens, and you're just like, whoa, it's the ocean is the master, But take us through that morning, going through, getting out to Cloudbreak, getting out there, and then what happened after that.
Yeah, as we were talking about before, the mental preparation and the stuff of what it is, and these are lessons that you learn and experience that come in with what you do as a big wave surfer, and they all play into allowing you to surf big waves and be okay and come home to your families. And for me, that one, we're over there and we're watching the swell and checking the waves, and we got there early and we're looking at it. It was funky wind. We're like, oh great, funky wind. And swell's not as big as it was supposed to be. Just things didn't line up the way that you would see. Like the Jaws day, everything was like, oh yeah, this is the day. This was like the day that we were expecting to see there was supposed to be like that, and it's not. And then you kind of just get almost, in a mindset where you're like, whatever. I just took things, you take things kind of for granted a little bit of just your normal preparation, and just knowing it's a building swell, I should have probably approached it with a lot more, tentativeness. I think, there's different ways of looking at it, but reality of what that swell was like, I surfed that kind of conditions when I jumped in all the time here at home, and it's not a big deal, but it's those new places and the things that they're not knowing the place as well as I should have, and all these little things that play into the experience that happens. And it's a good reminder, like for everybody that was involved in that, like everybody looked at me, and when I got the wave at Jaws, I was like, yeah, that's Aaron. Yeah, they all expected that. That wasn't something crazy. So then this happens, and it's like, it happens to me. That puts it all in perspective for every one of us, as myself and all of our peers and all of us. We're all tight knit guys, and you just never think, you never really put it in perspective that it's going to happen to you. And even my training and the things that we've done, you do all these big wave risk assessment group courses and things, and we train together for safety and being safe. But implementing them in a way that is where you're ready to use them and these things is what's key. And part of it is having the diligence to stick to your plans every time, and have things set up in the right way so that you don't fall into it. Because when you're not looking or you're not aware and you let your guard down, that's when things like that happen. And it was just a really, really, really weird, without going into like a crazy long story, my experience with it wasn't your normal experience. I didn't really knock out or anything like that, and didn't really get held down, this crazy thing. It was really, I feel like for myself, was just a total God thing, of a lesson for me to learn and go through and an experience, and to let myself understand, like, hey, he can use me, and he's ultimately in control in those situations. And we as big wave surfers as a community should be always watching out for each other, whether it's 2 feet up to huge, whatever it is. It's just being prepared and knowing that, hey, these things are going to happen, and they can happen when you least expect it, and they usually will happen when you least expect it. And your training that you have, you most likely won't use it when it's 40, 50 feet and cranking. You're going to probably use it when it's 2 feet on a reef and your friend hits themselves or hurts their, paralyzes their back or whatever it is, but you're going to be able to react with the right thing. And so I took a lot home from it, and, I'm super thankful, obviously, to have gone through those experiences. And, that's what makes us be able to do what we do, is you take things home from each time. Like, in hindsight, being prepared, having the right equipment on when I should have, if I wore it and something happened, no big deal. But in my mentality, I was like, I'll jump in, I'm fine. And if it's see a big one, I'll grab my vest and stuff. Whereas I should have been on the right equipment from the beginning, and not, taking those little things, you just added extra risk to a situation that I could have not done. And, I learn and grow from each situation, and I'm, the guys that were involved, they're, my good friends, and I'll never, to be on the other side of your training is a pretty humbling experience. Like when we train, we think it's never going to happen to us, but it is. It's for each one of us. You're only as good as the guy next to you. I'm only as good as you, Jamie, if you're training, and vice versa. Are you confident in the people that are around you? And all of my friends that were there are amazing, and that contributed to me being fine and okay and walking out and being able to surf again. So even to this day, it's like those experiences there's still always like it's a check in your pride. You got to take it back and go, we're not in control. And come to it with a humble heart and know that you're supposed to be out there. And if you're not comfortable, then, take the time and till you're comfortable to be out there, and don't push anything.
Yeah, I think I think there's moments in time. I think that, obviously when Mark Fu died at Mavericks, and then I think Sion, his passing at Mavericks, I think there's times and moments where they just, they're, for whatever reason, they happen to remind us, to put us back in check that, hey, this can happen to everyone. Like, I mean, I think that El Nino year, so much crazy stuff happened, and I saw people take waves and beatings, but you just go, how is that possible that guy's still alive? And then you get your wave, and I think that everyone was just like, everyone felt invincible. You know what I mean? And I think that then all of a sudden, that rolls through, goes into Southern Hemisphere, then that happens to you. I think it's a really good reality check. And like, I bet you everyone in that moment just went, holy shit, Aaron just nearly drowned. Like, that happened after what we just saw him do at Jaws. I think that probably at one stage, everyone just went, you know what? It's back to training. It's back to making sure I'm going to be ready. I'm not going to overlook the big picture, and I think, like you said, sometimes, these things happen for whatever reason. And maybe that was the reason for all of us to just go, hey, this is another reality check. We need to be ready. And thank God, things have been pretty good, so, yeah. I mean, I remember being here when I heard it, and I was just like, wow, I was tripping out, but thank God everything is okay.
Yeah, it's well said right there, what you said. The way that you look at it, it's that, it's exactly the way you put it right there. That's well said. Being prepared and not taking the little things.
For granted.
Gotta approach it every day. Yeah, every day. It's not in our hands. And I don't care. I don't care who you are, the best. Think you're the biggest, best, baddest, whatever. I'm telling you, you'll always be humbled. God is always bigger than that, and us, and it's a gift to be able to enjoy the things that we get to enjoy while we're here. And if you approach it with that way, you go far, and you'll come home to your family. And those are the things. As much as we love surfing, and we're all big wave surfers, like, our families and the people around us are honestly way more important than any wave we're going to ride. And I want to encourage the young kids out there that, don't put all your eggs into this big wave surf basket or surfing basket. There's a lot of things in this world that are going to fade away, and you just really, take it as it comes, and enjoy the moments that you have with the people around you. And those relationships and the friendships that you build are worth so much more than the waves that you ride. A lot of these trips, and me and you get to go on, and this group that we get to call friends, those experiences are ones that when you're old and you got these memories to look back on, or what you're going to hold on to, because we're getting older and you won't be able to surf forever. And but to be able to talk about it and these things, and like those trips that you bring up is so fun, and your friends, even if you're not a traveling surfer, but those experiences of going down to your home beach break and cruising with your friends and being able to just end the day in the water and go home and hang out and enjoy each other's company is what's really valuable. And that's what surfing does. It brings us together. And wherever you go around the world, you find that camaraderie in surfing. Is we're one family, and in that same way, we want to be looking out for everybody and bringing your best to the plate, and enjoy it together, and make those memories. And I'm thankful for that. I definitely have learned that over the years.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a good way to end, but we're going to end with, I call it 5 questions to finish the podcast. Right. And you can answer as long or as short as you like, but the best big wave in the world.
Well, the best big wave in the world that we know of, because I can't say we haven't known of a few, but I definitely love Jaws. It's definitely my, right now at this point, the quality of that wave is hands down. There's no other wave that's that quality, and when it's for its day, it's pretty insane.
Yeah. What's the heaviest, gnarliest big wave?
Heavy and gnarliest. Well, my worst beating to date would definitely be at Jaws as well. So I got a 3-wave hold down there, and I've never had that anywhere else in my life. And I've also been pinned to the bottom. So I mean, you get your special moments at each spot, but for me, my worst wipeout's there, so I'm just going to go with that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Being
What's
being
one?
flexed in half, being flexed in half at Mavs is not fun either. I've been not
Yeah.
able to walk for a few days after, but there's like I said, pound for pound at different places and the right day, but worst one was there, so
Yeah.
we're sticking with that.
Okay. Cool. What's one big wave you want to surf that you haven't surfed yet?
Um, there's a few here at home that every time it's, you're talking big and big, but in the big scale of things, I haven't got big Makaha the way I'd want to get it. Wave, Hanalei, big Hanalei.
Yeah.
I haven't got that. And I actually would really love to get, there's an outer reef here. We're just going to leave secret,
Yeah.
but at the
Yeah.
right moment at this point, I've seen a wave there. That's the wave that I've been looking for my whole life. So that might happen at some point. If it comes
Yep.
out,
Yep.
you'll know.
We won't say where that is. The most underrated big wave in the world.
Most underrated big wave. Underrated. I don't know. I mean, you could go along nowadays. Things have, over the years. Waimea was one that you would really
Mm.
say was everybody knew, but nowadays everybody underrates that thing. That thing still smash you on the big days when it gets 20-foot legit Hawaiian, 20 feet and above, and it's on the bowl, man. It'll hand it to you. But
Yeah.
there's so many waves around the world. I think underrated wise, if I had to stay in my home backyard, I would say Phantoms is probably one of the most underrated. That place is, when it's big and huge, it's scary, very scary.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think people underrate that a lot.
Yeah. And then where do you think the next big wave discovery is going to be? Like, you don't have to say exactly like what realm. Like, is it South America? Still, is it Australia? I mean, so much coastline. I'm wondering. Like, I guess it's nearly like the next Nazare. Like Nazare, like wasn't there, and then all of a sudden now Nazare's there. I'm wondering where the next Nazare is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, Europe gets so much swell, man, during that time too, and there's a lot of coast along there that hasn't gotten surfed and things in places. And I think if it all came together, it's probably somewhere in Europe. I mean, I feel like the boys down in Oz have done a pretty good job of knowing what's around, and even if it is there, you'd have to really hunt to find it. But I feel like in Europe, there's it's just chasing that swell. Where's it going? Where's it aiming? I think if they get better at those swells are really erratic too. So you never know which way they're focusing at the right time. But just the fact that they get that much huge swell, Hawaii, the South Pacific, and that now people are pretty keen on the ocean and knowing what's going on. And I feel like a lot of people tend to see, or the word gets out more. But I feel like there's a lot of places in Europe where it hasn't gotten, like, people don't really know. Even if they see giant waves, they're not like, if the fishermen there are just like, oh, that's just what
Yeah.
happens. So I feel pretty underground in that retrospective. Surfing isn't really in all these other parts of countries in Europe. So I have a feeling we're going to see something else come out of Europe that's going to be pretty special at some point. That's what I would say.
Cool. Awesome, mate. Well, hey, awesome chatting, buddy. It's been a while.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Much love to the family. Good luck with the new boy coming along. Hope you guys can come up with a name soon.
Yeah.
And I
Thanks.
appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah, thanks to Surfline too for doing this and giving us the opportunity to just talk story and be able to put this out to you guys out there in the world and let them know that, hey, there's stories behind us, guys, and we thank you guys for supporting big wave surfing and moving forward. And yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Jamie. You're awesome, and you're looking good, by the way, too.
Thanks, bud.
I've been watching your training too, so I know you're ready.
All right, buddy. Good talking. See you, mate.
Okay. Aloha, you guys. See you. Bye.